Saturday, 2nd March 2024. We're discussing Canto 1, Chapter 3, Krishna is the source of all incarnations. And we're starting from verse number 30. Om Ajnanatimrandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamiti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurvani Pracharine. Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshtarine. जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। So yesterday we just did the recap for the first and the second chapters of first canto, and today we'll continue our discussion from the third chapter, verse number 30. But before that, I just wanted to emphasize the importance of the Paribhasa Sutra of Srīmad Bhāgavatam 1.3.28. We must all try to memorize this verse, because ultimately, as we know, this is the Paribhasa Sutra, the essence of Srīmad Bhāgavatam. Ete cham sakala pumsha Krishnastu Bhagwan Swayam Indrari Vyakulam Lokam Mridayanti Yuge Yuge. It's a very wonderful verse where, after describing all the incarnations, Lord Krishna is described. Ete cham sakala pumsha. That means, yes, these are all plenary portions and portions of plenary portions described, but Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. Krishna is the original personality of Godhead, and some of his qualities, Indrari Vyakulam Lokam Mridayanti Yuge Yuge. So Indra-ari means the enemies of Indra. So when the atheists are causing disturbance on these planets, then the Lord incarnates to protect the theists. Indrari Vyakulam Lokam Mridayanti. Mridayanti means to give protection. Yuge Yuge. In different ages, the Lord appears as Krishna Stu Bhagavan Swayam. He appears as Lord Krishna himself. And then we also saw the next verse. It is describing the Falashruti of reciting these verses, these mysterious appearances and activities of the Lord. So verse 29 goes, whoever carefully recites the mysterious appearances of the Lord with devotion in the morning and the evening gets relief from all miseries of life. So we also see in the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, 4th chapter, verse number 9, Krishna says the same thing. Janma karma chame divyam evam yo veti tattvataha. Veti means one who has the knowledge of tattva, of the truth. What is tattvata? That if janma karma chame divyam, that my janma, my appearance and my activities are transcendental. And we also see that here the word used in the 1.3.29 is vimuchyate. Vimukti we get special liberation. Why? Because the Lord's activities and appearances are transcendental. But also Prabhupada says in the last sentence of 1.3.29 that because these are mysterious, the appearances and the activities of Krishna are mysterious, those who do not follow the prescribed regulations of devotional service are not entitled to enter into the mysteries of his birth and activities. So yes, we should have the knowledge, but at the same time we should follow the prescribed regulations of devotional service, the do's and the don'ts, the rules and regulations of the devotional service. Of course, when we are following those rules and regulations, then from time to time we should introspect and see where we are lacking or where we can go deeper. Introspection is very important. So 1.3.30 we continue. Etad rupam bhagavato hiya rupasya chidatmanah maya gune virachitam Mahadibhiratmani. Etad rupam bhagavato hi rupasya chidatmanah maya guner virachitam mahadibhiratmani. Etat, all these, rupam, forms, bhagavataha, of the Lord, he certainly, arupasya, of one who has no material form, chit atmanaha, of the transcendence, maya, material energy, guna, by the qualities, virchitam, manufactured, mahat adhibi, with the ingredients of matter, atmani, in the self. Srila Prabhupada's translation. The conception of the Virat, universal form of the Lord, as appearing in the material world is imaginary. It is to enable the less intelligent and neophytes to adjust to the idea of the Lord's having form. But factually, the Lord has no material form. So here now, we might ask that why, after describing the incarnations and after describing the the advent, the appearance, and the glories of Krishna Stu Bhagwan Swayam, why are we taken back again into the Virata Rupa? So, just to give you a bit of background, in the second chapter, when Suta Goswami has described Jnanam Advayam, he describes the three features of knowing the personality of Godhead: Brahma, Paramatma, and Bhagwan. So, Suta will now briefly describe Brahma and Paramatma before he starts speaking about Bhagwan. And then three questions he wants us to answer. Okay, so what is the Virat Rupa's position in relation to Krishna? We also see Virat Rupa described and shown to Arjuna in the 11th chapter. So what is the Virat Rupa's position in relation to Krishna? Second question is the Virat Rupa an incarnation of Krishna situated in matter? Is the Virat Rupa an incarnation of Krishna situated in matter? And third is, and does Krishna, therefore, as a Virat Rupa, possesses a material form? So yes, what happens here when we start description of the Virat Rupa, as we see in the 30th verse, we start beginning to see spirit in the matter. Prabhupada describes here in the purport that the incarnation, all the incarnations mentioned before are transcendental, and there's no material tinge in these incarnations. There's no tinge of materialism in their bodies. But the Virat Rupa is conceived only for the neophyte worshippers like us. It is there's a logic called Shakha Chandra Nyaya, and Prabhupada describes in many places the Shakha Chandra Nyaya. That means the Lord and his incarnations are on a very high pedestal. And for us neophytes, when we do not understand this concept of the Lord having a completely spiritual body, something which is closer to us is being described to us. So a simple example is given to understand a very distant or a very complex concept. So Shakha Chandranaya. Shakha means a branch of a tree, and Chandra means moon. So when the child is asking a question about moon, how far it is, how big it is, all that typical kiddie questions, what the parents are doing, that they are showing first the branch, which is branch of a tree, which is very close. And they're telling the child that, can you see the tree? These are the branches, but in between the branches, the moon is shown. So when the Shaka Chandra Nyaya is explained in this way, a very distant, a very complex matter is described in a very simple way. So there are innumerable incarnations of Krishna, and there is no possibility of counting them. But we can simply describe them, we can simply indicate them by giving the example of the moon and the branches of the tree. So same way, in this verse, the Virat Rupa is described. And even now, living in Australia, we also know that the Aborigines, they also worship nature. And they worship nature as, divine. And that's their concept. Yes, what they can see. They can see the earth, they can see the clouds, they can see the dust storms, they can see desert. So, if you see, most of their even paintings are of earthy colors. They are light earthy or dark brown, but they're more of earthy colors. They are the terracotta colors. So, of course, the Virat Rupa is explained here just to explain us that the Lord is, even though He is completely transcendental, but the example of the Virat Rupa is given so that we can understand from this Virat Swarup, which is, as Prabhupada describes in Bhagavad Gita, it is imaginary. And also here it says that this material conception of Virat Rupa is not counted in the list of his factual forms, but it is just shown to us so that we can conceive of the transcendental form of the Lord. In purport, Prabhupada says very nicely, he said there's no difference between the body and self as there is in the conditioned soul. So we, in conditioned souls, our body is different from the soul. Whereas for the Lord, there's no difference between his body and the soul. Any questions or any comments? Prabhupada very interestingly writes here in the last couple of lines in the purport that the conclusion is that the material conception of the body of the Lord as Virat is imaginary. There's no material conception, there's no materialism in the body of the Lord at all. But because the Virat Rupa is imaginary, the material conception in the body of the Lord also is imaginary. And then Prabhupada says, both the Lord and the living beings are living spirits and have original spiritual bodies. So even us as jivas are living spirits and having original spiritual bodies, which of course we know Prabhupada has spoken many, many times. And then Bhagavatam, next verse, it gives us an example of how less intelligent people can see that the body is the soul. There's no difference. The next verse describes that. Does anyone want to recite the verse? Verse 1, 331.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. I just have one question from the previous verse. Yeah.
Yes.
Here you say that Virat Rupa is an imaginary form of Lord Krishna, but he shows the Virat Rupa to Arjuna.
Yes.
Why is that, Prabhu? Why? Because
so
Arjuna was...
Prabhupada writes in the purport that Arjuna has seen, he has heard, the audio side, when you talk of audio visual, he has heard from the Lord that he is pervading into everywhere, among the mountains I am the Himalayas, among the horses I am Uchchaishrava, among the elephants I am Airavat, among the bodies of water I am the ocean. So he has heard the description, but now Arjun wants to see the visual side. And Prabhupada writes that Arjun didn't want to see it. It is basically for the future generations, for the common man, that Arjun wanted to see it. And then Krishna gives him the special vision, and then Krishna shows him the Virat Rupa. But then again, Prabhupada writes there that Virat Rupa is not actually something which Arjun wanted to see or which Krishna wanted to show, but this imaginary conception, so that we can now understand in future, if some person comes and says, I am God, right? So we can simply fold our hands and ask them, can you please show the Virata Rupa, which I can then give you the certificate. So that's the reason why Krishna shows the Virat Rupa, not for Arjun, not for himself, but for the future generations, for common men, that we can relate from our material side to the spiritual realm. Does it make sense, Madhuri?
Yes, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
One more
Okay.
question, Prabhu. Does that mean even demigods will not have spiritual body. They all have material bodies.
Yes, 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 yes. I mean, we know also that Brahma also lives for 100 of his years, and that whole description of his life is given in Bhagavad Gita. Yeah.
Correct. Thank you.
So 1331. Clouds and dust are carried by the air, but less intelligent persons say that the sky is cloudy and the air is dirty. Similarly, they also implant material bodily conceptions on the spirit self. So here the Bhagavatam describes the position of someone who's less intelligent or a neophyte. And the example is given is that clouds and dust are carried by the air. It's not that the sky is cloudy or the air is dirty. It's just because the cloud is there and the dust particles are in the air, we think that the sky is cloudy. Sky is always clean. But because the sky is carrying the cloud and the air is carrying the dirt, we think air is dirty. So similarly, when the soul is carrying the body, we think I am the body. Yes? Prabhupada very nicely, he says here that with our material eyes and senses, we cannot see the Lord, who is all spirit. We cannot even detect the spiritual spark which exists within the material body of the living being. We can understand this. Most people, even us, before we came to Krishna consciousness, we had no idea who am I? What is my position? Forget about the soul. We didn't even think I'm the mind. We always thought I'm the body. Whatever, is pleasing to the body, through the mind, I will do it. And mind is such an important element in our thinking. In the 11th canto, there's a very nice verse where the Avanti Brahmana, he speaks, Nayam jano me sukha dukha hetu, na devatma grih karma kala, manah param karanam amananti. Manah param karanam. It says, samsara chakram parivartayed yat. He says, Nayam Janome. He says, the Avanti Brahmana has gone through, he was very rich, and then, due to providence, he became very poor, and all his relatives deserted him. And then he realizes suddenly that, yes, this is what has happened to me. I should be now becoming detached from my material life and becoming more and more attached to spiritual life. And he gives this very wonderful verse, Nayam Janome, that these people are not the cause of my happiness and distress. Almost all the time, when we go through these happiness and distress, forget even distress, even happiness, we think that the people surrounding us are the cause of this happiness, or my ability is the cause of happiness or distress, whatever it is, or my time is not very good. So the Brahmana says, Nayam jano me sukha dukha hetur, that these people are not the cause of my happiness and distress. Na devatatma. Now devatatma means neither the demigods or atma, my own body. Graha karma kalaha. Graha karma. Graha means the planets. We say, graha achhe nahi hai abhi. My time is not the best. Graha karma. My work. Kala. My time is not very good now. I'm going through Shani or Sadhe Sati or whatever it is. Right? So this Avanti Brahmana says, neither these people are the cause of my happiness and distress, nor the demigods, nor my own body, nor the planets, nor my past work, not this time. Rather, it is the mind alone that causes happiness and distress and perpetuates the rotation of material life. Manah param karanam amananti. Manah param karanam means this mind is the only cause, as it is said by the standard authorities. And what does it do? Samsara chakram parivartayet yat. And what it does is, it perpetuates the rotation of material life, which we're into now. So this is what happens when we do not see the Lord, and when we see things in a confused and a convoluted way. So that example here given is that for a less intelligent person, we should see the reality through the Shastra Chakshu, through the eyes of the Shastras. For a new person, we generally identify the body with ourselves. As we can see, Prabhupada gives in the purport the example that when the president's car is going, immediately we can say, yes, this is the president, and we identify the car with the president. Actually, the car is different and separate from president. But when similarly, the less intelligent people who want to see God without having proper qualification, they are first shown this gigantic Virat Roop of the Lord. And of course, Lord is within and without, but because we cannot see Him, this giant form is shown to us. Very interestingly, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, he speaks a very nice verse, and one of my favorite verses. If you understand this, that from our position of being neophyte devotees to coming to Krishna consciousness and progressing there, if you understand our connection, because yes, we know I'm not the body, I'm not the mind, but then how do I connect with the divinity? Both body and mind are material, and this progression is given at many places in Srīmad Bhāgavatam. In chapter 2, in the summary of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna speaks, Nasti buddhir ayuktasya, na chayuktasya bhavana, na cha bhavayahatta santir, asantasya kutah sukham. Very nice. He said, Nasti buddhir ayuktasya. Says, if our buddhi or our intelligence is not connected with Krishna, if our not ayuktasya means not connected. If our buddhi is not connected with Krishna or with divine, and if our mind nacha ayuktasya bhavana, if our mind is not fixed and is connected with Krishna, so neither the mind nor the intelligence are connected with Krishna. Nacha bhavayatah shantir. So how will we then experience shanti? If our mind is not fixed, if our intelligence is not connected with Krishna, how will we experience peace, shanti? Asantasya kutah sukham. He says, how will a restless person ever experience happiness? So when we think that the goal of our life is to experience happiness, we have to be connected with Krishna through Krishna Katha. So Bhagavatam actually takes us, through this journey of explaining us from different angles, from whatever position we should connect our mind with Krishna Katha and Krishna Kirtan. So, for someone new who cannot conceive and that's why we are also given the form of the deities. When the deities are there, it becomes very easy for us. There is a place where we can go. It's called temple. There are deities. We can go and appreciate the beauty of the deities. We can connect with the deities. We can look at the deities. We can speak to the deities. We can reveal our minds to the deities, because these deities are the form of the Lord in the material world. Many times when you speak to people and you say, Prabhu, you should come to the temple. But they say, Prabhu, I think of Krishna all the time. I see Krishna all the time. I don't have to come to the temple. The devotees answer them, Prabhu, there's oxygen and hydrogen everywhere in the universe. Why do you have to drink a glass of water? Why don't you just drink from the universe? That's our position, that we cannot drink water from the universe combining 2 atoms of hydrogen and 1 atom of oxygen. No, we need a glass of proper water where the Lord has combined the 2 atoms of hydrogen and 1 atom of oxygen. And therefore, for us, we should come to the temple, take the darshan of the deities, admire their beauties. And one thing, Krishna is the only person who doesn't mind you staring at him. Otherwise, any person in the material world, if you stare at them, they would feel very uncomfortable, very annoyed. But Krishna, Srimati Radharani, Shri Gaurnitai, Jagannath Baldev Subhadra, these are the personalities who are not at all annoyed or become uncomfortable when you stare at them. In fact, they actually love when you stare at them. And many times when we go to the temple, you can see the devotees just very, very affectionately very, very lovingly staring at the deity forms of the Lord. And the deity forms are again for people like us who really cannot understand the transcendence of the Lord. Any questions or any comments? Any reflections? So let's go to 1:3:32. Does anyone want to recite the verse, please? Please unmute yourself and anyone wants to recite this verse?
Can I try, Prabhu?
Yes, please.
अतः परं यदव्यक्तम् अव्युद्धा गुणा बृहीतम् अदृष्ट्वा श्रुता वस्तुवाद जीवो यद् पुनर्भव.
Thank you, Mataji. So can you read the word to word also, please?
Ataha, this, param, beyond, yat, which, avyaktam, unmanifested, avyudha, without formal shape, guna brahmitam, affected by the qualities, adrashta, unseen, ashruta, unheard, vastuvat, being like that, saha, that, jiva, living being, yat, that which, punah bhavaha, takes birth repeatedly.
And translation also, please. Thank you, Mataji. Sorry.
Beyond this, gross conception of form is another subtle conception of form, which is without formal shape, is unseen, unheard, and unmanifest. The living being has this form beyond this subtly. Otherwise, he could not have repeated births.
Yes,
Right.
so Krishna is describing, thank you, Mataji. Krishna is describing the spirit side here. And Prabhupada very nicely says here, first line, as the gross cosmic manifestation is conceived as a gigantic body of the Lord, so also there is a conception of his subtle form, which is simply realized without being seen, heard, or manifested. Prabhupada also says, but in fact, all these gross or subtle conceptions of the body are in relation with the living beings. So here, the living beings and the Lord both are described that yes, we are all spirit. Krishna is a spirit and we are also spirit. But Krishna is a supreme spirit who doesn't have any material body. His body is made up of Sat Chit Ananda. And that's why it's called Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha. Brahmaji says his Vigraha or form is Satchidananda. The difference is that because we are conditioned, even though we have the original spiritual form, but we are undergoing repeated births and deaths. But Krishna is eternally existent in his transcendental form. And you also see that even when Krishna comes here, taking a human form, taking the Narakriti, he is still in his original, inexhaustible form. So Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that when I come here, I come in my original, inexhaustible form. So Prabhupada says here, in the second paragraph, the conclusion is that the Lord is eternally existent in his transcendental form, which is neither gross nor subtle like that of a living being. His body is never to be compared to the gross and subtle bodies of the living being. All such conceptions of God's body are imaginary. The living being has his eternal spiritual form, which is conditioned only by his material contamination. So here again, yes, it is given. There is a gross conception, but conception of the Lord is there, of the body of the Lord. But for us, we actually have a gross form, whereas the Lord's form is completely spiritual. So for us, because we are contaminated, and that's why we are conditioned, and that's why we cannot see the eternal spiritual form here. Now, again, you might ask, why is this described here? But, again, same thing, that for us, we need to understand our position first. When we understand our position as being conditioned, and we want to hear more and more and more about Krishna, then we can understand that, yes, we establish our connection with Krishna through the Krishna Katha and Krishna Kirtan, then we can understand I am the spirit soul and not the body. And in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, in the 20th through 23rd verse, Krishna says that when once one realizes that we are the spirit soul, and in the topmost transcendence in the samadhi, in the trance, then we can also understand the Lord. We can understand his connection, our connection with the Lord, and we can experience what Krishna describes, boundless transcendental happiness. So thank you very much for joining. It's 7 o'clock. Any questions, any comments, any reflections? Please unmute yourself and say. This is slightly technical, but unless we understand, as I've always been mentioning, that we understand the Leela, the Tattva is going to be difficult. Sorry, unless we understand the other way around Tattva, the Leela is going to be difficult. Any questions or comments? Reflections? Okay, today is Saturday. Let's go to grocery shopping and kids' activities. But in all these things, let's keep Krishna at the center, that somehow or the other we connect with Krishna and be Krishna conscious. In the evening, center, we start the program at 5 o'clock, with Prashadam at 5:30, and tomorrow morning, Bhagavatam class at the center. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Bhagavad Gita as it is ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam, Granth Raj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
जय शाकिर प्रभु की जय
और भक्त वृंद की जय. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
First up this morning, in a touching vigil overnight, hundreds of mourners have gathered to remember the lives of the allegedly murdered couple, Jesse Baird and Luke Davies.